afternoon. Let's get started today. My name is Ed Crowell. I'm President and CEO of the Georgia Motor Trucking Association. My entire reason for being here today is to introduce you to people who actually know what they're doing. So I'll be serving as your moderator, and hopefully our group will be an interesting and engaging group for you. You know, if you're in the freight business, well, if you're not in the freight business, you probably think that about 95% of the world moves in a box. You know, everything fits in this one container that either gets on a ship and then gets on a truck and then gets on a rail. And of course, if you watch the History Channel, you'll think the only thing that doesn't do that are these giant casino statues that a guy loads in the back of his F-150 and drives down the road. Okay? But the reality is there's an awful lot of freight that is what we've termed here out-of-gauge freight. There's an awful lot of freight, a lot of business to be done in doing something special. And our panelists today are going to speak to you about that from both sides, or from all sides of it, from folk who manufacture that freight, from folk who move that freight, and folk who create the equipment that moves that freight. So we're going to get right to it. What we're going to do is our panelists are all going to speak to you from here, so we'll get you going back and forth. The speakers will be here, the PowerPoints will be there, and when it's done, we'll bring our panel up to the table here so you can ask them some questions. Let me start by introducing our first panelist today. Dimitri Miltiades is the Logistics Customs Compliance Manager for JCB. Now, you all know JCB if you've ever been down 95 in Savannah. You've seen them out there. Dimitri is JCB, of course, equipment. He handles responsibility for the movement of all JCB equipment in regards to import, export, and domestic sales. He also manages custom compliance that includes internal compliance auditing, as well as the reviewing and monitoring of all JCB import and export activities. He joined the firm in 2003 following a 21-year career with John S. James Companies as a customs house broker. He primarily oversaw that company's import department functions and conducted regulatory customs audits along with other duties. Mr. Miltiades is a licensed customs broker and obtained a certification in hazardous materials as well. He's a member of the Savannah Maritime Association and the Savannah International Freight Forwarders Association. He's our first speaker today, so please join me in welcoming Mr. Dimitri Miltiades.
It's difficult to go first. I was chosen to go first, so here we go. First, I'm honored to be chosen as a participant in today's events at the summit. We had a great lunch. I kind of feel like we all need to stand up and maybe do some jumping jacks or something and wake back up. But a little bit about JCB. At the JCB facility in Savannah, we manufacture two machines right now. We manufacture our skid steer loader, which is the machine on the left-hand side, and our Hemi machine, which is a machine we build for the U.S. Army. The skid steer machine was engineered and designed at the Savannah facility, and we began production last January, making basically 7 models of a larger platform machine. At that start of production, we were probably making 5 machines a day. Currently, we're making 17 machines a day, so that's quite a bit of an increase from where we were a year ago. We also have designed a large platform machine, which is 7 models also, and we are currently making 2 of those models. It will be up to full speed with the 7 additional models for a total of 14 models of our skid steer by April 1st, and we'll be making roughly around 25 skid steer loaders a day. Hemi machine, we're making about 10 a month. What's unique about this machine, it's a backhoe loader, a high-speed backhoe loader that will go 60 miles an hour. And you just got to kind of see it's not the most aerodynamically sound machine with the big shovel on the front, but one of the requirements in getting the contract from the military was they needed that machine to go at least convoy speed, so it would not have to be put on another truck to be transported by the military. And I don't know if there's any military people in the audience, but I believe convoy speeds are about 35 miles an hour or something of that nature. But that machine would do 60 miles an hour. We have 19 manufacturing facilities. We make over 300 machines. The topic of this session is out-of-gauge cargo. My fellow panel members probably have more difficult, complex cargo to move out of gauge than I do. 75% of our machines are out of gauge, but we can drive them on a ro-ro ship and we can drive them off a ro-ro ship. We do have some extremely large excavators, which we do sometimes have difficulty moving. What's currently working for us? Inbound from England, we utilize a ro-ro service. We utilize all the ro-ro ports through Wallenius Wilhelmsen, who's our ro-ro carrier. Machines out of the port of Southampton into Savannah, Galveston, Tacoma, Port Hueneme. We have good visibility and tracking and tracing with our internal systems, also with WWL's website. What also works for us is we have a dedicated logistics partner and we have an on-site logistics partner that works with me on a daily basis. As you can see, Southampton outbound into the various ro-ro ports. On our supply chain, dealer network, it's great to utilize all these other ports. Again, it's a construction machine. You drive it on a vessel, you drive it off. For dealers over on the West Coast who place orders with our factory, it doesn't make any sense to move those machines to Savannah. They've got to pay all that inland freight to move the machine from Savannah to their dealership on the West Coast. So this is where the supply chain of ro-ro to these various ports gets the machines closer to the dealer location. Concerns that we have right now, obviously, is the fluctuation of the diesel prices. Trying to keep our costs down. As it was touched on during the lunch by one of the speakers, certain concerns about highway infrastructure. We're hearing new construction is going to be minimal. States need funding. They need funding to repair the crumbling highways, the bridges. Delays, detours are costing people significant dollars. On-time delivery suffers from our infrastructure at times. We also are hearing about difficulties with commercial truck shortages. A lot of truck lines got rid of their equipment during the recession. They didn't buy any new equipment. As the economy strengthens, there's probably more cargo out there to be moved than there is available trucks to move it. I think there's going to be a Q&A after. I appreciate it. Ed, thank you.
All right, I did not know that backhoes came in a sports model that would go 60 miles an hour. That would be sort of a scary sight to see coming down the road. But I think actually I've got the right thing up here for our next presenter. Okay, terrific. Our next presenter is Jorge Quintanilha, excuse me, of EFACEC Power Transformers Incorporated out of Porto, Portugal. Mr. Quintanilha is the manager for logistics and supply chain at the company, and he's worked for them for 27 years. He's been involved in the plant in Rincon, Georgia in managerial positions since its inception, from the groundbreaking in 2008 through the start of operations in 2010. His current responsibilities include the areas of purchasing, procurement, internal logistics, and special transports. Born in Porto, Portugal, he holds an engineering degree from Porto University and an MBA in executive management. Besides his responsibility in logistics and supply chains areas, since before coming to the United States, his experience includes quality assurance, after-sales service, and R&D. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Quintanilha. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Ed referred, my name is Jorge Quintanilha, and I'm the manager for logistics and supply chain of a company that landed in the US about 3 years ago. So, besides what do we manufacture? We manufacture power transformers, and if you, after this session, just go out and look on those windows, you'll see a substation where there are some big units protruding from the area, which are the units, the kind of units we manufacture. Basically, not only this is a out-of-gauge session, many of our units are real big units. I will show you some of examples, but I will also think that probably it will find interesting the questions and the little story behind our landing in the USA. So I start the presentation. So basically, we are based in Porto, Portugal. And we landed here in September 25th, 2008. And the whole building and operating of power transformers plant is a supply chain challenge. This is our plant in Effingham County, Georgia. This is about 20 miles inland from Savannah. And start of building in September 2008. End of this building, August 2009, so just below 1 year. After that, start of operations beginning 2010. Why do we came to the USA? So, in our home plant in Portugal, we already manufacture transformers for the USA customers since '98. We have a customer base of about 10 utilities. Many located in Georgia, or some of them in Georgia, but also in Florida, in Alabama, in central US, and in California. We ran out of capacity in our plant in Portugal, so we started to think about planting a plant here in the US in end 2007. Apart from that, we have notice that on the replacement market alone in the US, we have a high value opportunity. Many of the existing transformers in the grids of US are approaching what is called end of life. That means 40 years plus of operation. So they need replacement. And there are, according to our consultants that started all this job, there are 7,000 of them. And if we capture 10% of that, we have work for 7 or 8 years alone. So this was one big reason. Another reason was the strong fluctuations of the US dollar versus the euro. Since I came here in the US in 2008, anything between 119 and 159 was present, so that's reason enough. It's more than enough to have one plant inside your borders. And also the cost of transportation between our plant in Portugal and here. This is the location of our plant. So we are on the tip of Europe. We have an inbound supply chain that encompasses Spain, France, England, Germany, Italy for about 80% of the inbound traffic of supplies. We deal with a lot of problems or issues. Problems, no, it's issues. But it's enough. Here in the US, it's unheard of. But for instance, it's enough a strike of truckers in France or Germany or Spain to block us in terms of supplies. We are quite narrowed in inbound. And this is our location of our plant in the US. Actually, I listed here the major location criteria. So number one, proximity of a major ocean port. That's Savannah, Georgia. Number two, proximity of a class 1 railroads. In our case, it is CSX, could be NS, one of the two. So there are two eastern carriers. So CSX was the one chosen to connect to our plant. But we have excellent relations with NS also. Highway access with minimum transportation restrictions. We don't have issues, at least until now found, for moving big loads within the state of Georgia. I will talk about that later. And finally, the natural factors statistically minimize. So Georgia is known for not having, recently at least, hurricanes or tornadoes, some of them in the northwest, seismic or seisms or flooding. So by these factors, we located the plant here. Of course, I just heard in the presentation of Georgia Ports Authority, there is other location that we did not change, we not placed here. The major customer base and is on the eastern United States, so we can cover them starting from Savannah, from this location. Challenges in the inbound supply chain. So it makes no sense if we have in Europe a plant, we move a plant to the US, and we stick to the suppliers in Europe. So that means we have to go through all the supplies, all the components, all the parts of a transformer, and find and qualify a US equivalent. This means visiting a lot of suppliers. This means qualifying them. This means making tests, finding the right equivalent, adapting to your system of units, which is different from metric. That was a challenge. Different business practices. This means here you put the risk first. So you write all the risks up front. Back in Europe, we can buy magnetic steel of €1 million worth with 2 pages and a handshake. It's still like this in many issues. So it's different. I'm not going to comment that. Inbound USA road transports. Frankly, they are easier, cheaper, and faster than in Europe. We don't have weekend blockings as there is in Europe. You cannot, in certain countries, go in a truck over the weekend. Here, that's unheard of. And we have to adapt to import regulations. For instance, the ISF. So we had help from many of our partners in the logistics industry, and this is now behind us. In terms of outbound transport, road. To our surprise, the USA equivalent to 50 countries for permits, oversize and weights, okay? This we were not expecting this, so we partnered with a lot of road carriers to actually directly deal with this. They are different in each state, so it's really challenging. We have to adapt to the rail mode. Back home, we move this over the road. Of course, the scale is not so big as in the US, so the challenges are different. Here, we had to adapt from the start to rail mode. So yes, we move dimensional weight loads. We'll show you some examples afterwards. And here, since the beginning, we understood the importance of partnering with railroad clearance departments from the early design stage. That means our engineering, when they design a transformer, a power transformer that surely will present some size problems or weight problems, they already know what kind of cars will move them or will be able to move them, and they design based on those cars, namely deck height, possibility of lateral shifting, vertical shifting, number of axles, all that. Next, I will show you some quick examples of already moved loads. They are not very much because we started only beginning of 2010. This is the biggest load we've moved until now by road, so 152,000 pounds. Dimensions are in meters, sorry about that, is multiply by 3 and divide by 10. Okay, length, width, height. This is for Texas. It faced a different permit criteria over all the 4 states in the way. Okay. But this, I don't show any other road modes because actually this was the biggest one. Anything below this, we move by roads until, unless there is some height issue and some overpass in the way that cannot be, or a whole tree or whatever can appear in the road. Rail mode. This was a 300 MVA to 30 kV transformer. We moved this on an 8-axle depressed center car. This is not the biggest one. So we have a rail spur, as I told you, directly connected to CSX. This was a 500 MVA shell transformer, 230, so 500,000 pounds, Florida. 20-axle car, depressed center, shiftable sideways and vertically. We made a party out of this. And this is the latest one, December 2011, a 700 MVA transformer, which totally assembled and filled would weigh 600 metric tons. But we actually designed this in a different way. So actually, this would be material for a Schnabel car. But for a number of reasons, we did not move that way. We actually separated the phases. So if you notice here, there are 3 elements and a cover which is behind the coolers. And we placed temporary covers, and we moved this in 3 cars of 8-axle depressed center. This was into Mississippi State. Basically, these are the examples that we have, not many. We started not too much time ago. So, but this is the line we are following. Okay? Thank you. You can find anything else on our website. Okay?
Okay. And our last presenter here brings us back to Georgia, which is Kevin Black. Kevin Black is the plant manager for the newest facility of Great Dane Trailers. It'll be located in Statesboro, Georgia, and I say it will be located because it's currently under construction. I think Kevin said they're going to start producing in April of this year when it becomes fully operational. He's been working with Great Dane for 10 years after an 18-year career with Trailmobile prior to that. He's seen just about everything you can see as far as building a trailer of various sizes. He is a graduate of Eastern Illinois University, and I'll ask you to join me in welcoming Kevin Black.
All right, thank you. After hearing Dimitri and George's credentials, I felt like he should have just got up and said he's just a manufacturing guy. As Ed said, we are in the process of building our new facility in Statesboro. That facility will not handle out-of-gauge freight concerns that you might have as far as equipment for hauling out-of-gauge freight. We will be a refrigerated trailer plant. We will have what we consider to be no constraints, meaning we will build just about anything that anybody that hauls refrigerated material wants. Obviously, that's down the road. I think that probably the main reason for me being invited to participate is that trailers themselves, while filling a trailer up and hauling it somewhere is a fairly common practice, when everything you do to haul out your finished product means you cannot bring a trailer back, it obviously poses some pretty serious concerns with cost. We do have a very cost-competitive industry that we're dealing with. As you can see, and Ed mentioned, the plant is probably about a month and a half away. That picture's about a month old. The plant's probably about a month and a half away from actually producing. We are in the process of starting to bring material in. One of the questions that I get asked quite frequently when I tell somebody that we're opening a new plant in Georgia is, oh, are you going to do a lot of business overseas? Is that why you're going near Savannah? Actually, no. We don't do any business overseas. We don't haul our trailers overseas. We bring very little in from overseas as far as our componentry. Obviously, we do have some vendors that have factories overseas, but most of those vendors actually bring their material into domestic warehouses, et cetera, before they would come to our facility. We are in Georgia because Great Dane has been in Georgia for 110 years. We closed a plant in Savannah 3 years ago and obviously decided that we needed to replace that capacity at some point. And I think that the state of Georgia did a fine job of making sure that we came back here to make that happen. With regard to freight, obviously inbound and outbound freight is a concern for every company. Our challenges with regard to inbound freight are probably similar to the challenges of everybody else. We do not have a lot of out-of-spec freight, but we do have a couple things that we'll talk here in a little bit as far as inbound material. For us, obviously, the challenge is to get our trailers delivered to the customer, in a very cost-effective manner. Some of the things that work for us, we do a lot of milk jug runs for smaller items. Obviously, those are generally smaller contract or carriers that are just trying to grow a little bit in the industry. We do a lot of that. LTL is our mainstay. That's our lifeblood. And then there again, the local trucking companies that are always looking to expand, and we'll get into that more here in a little bit, because that's what saves our ability to get our trailers delivered to our customer. One of the things that we do not do with refrigerated trailers that we do with a lot of our dry van trailers and our flatbeds, et cetera, throughout the country is we have the ability to trip lease, load those trailers out, deliver them to the customer, and they've already had a load in them. Some customers are okay with that, some are not. Obviously, there's some liability concerns there. We do not have that ability in 99.9% of the cases with refrigerated trailers, just because of the constraints on what you can load and as far as finding loads for those trailers. Rail has pretty much, it is not really a factor in the refrigerated side for us, because we do not build a lot for the West Coast, and it's not really feasible for us financially to do so anywhere in the Midwest. Direct material inbound. One of the big issues for us is as we move our trailer manufacturing facility to Georgia, we have several plants in the Midwest, and the core of our vendor operations are also in the Midwest. That leaves us kind of outside the loop when it comes to dedicated loads from our vendors. They like to load up a trailer and just make a kind of a circle in the Midwest, and we're well outside that loop. So that leaves us some huge opportunities for vendors and carriers in Georgia to help us solve those problems and to fix the slight disadvantage that I am currently facing as far as our transportation costs. I think that the most important thing for Great Dane is the smaller trucking companies that decide that they want to grow a little bit, and this is a very difficult time for that. Generally, and some people in here may have actually run into this, but a lot of trucking companies have grown from the trailer industry alone just in delivering trailers. And I won't mention those names, but there's several large trucking companies that started out just delivering new trailers and trying to find ways to get those backhauls, because it's very difficult to get that backhaul if you don't have a trailer. There are some cases where you can get one, but if I'm delivering 100 trailers a week, it's very unlikely that somebody's going to find 100 opportunities to pick up a trailer and bring it back here, that at some point they don't have to haul back to where they picked it up. So it does make it very difficult for our carriers to get those delivered. So one of the things that we find is these small carriers that decide they're going to take on our load actually end up with a lot more know-how in the end. They can do just about anything. They'll scratch up loads from, who knows where. The ingenuity that they come up with is just, it's amazing. Some of these people that, there's people that I went to school with that I didn't know were that smart, neither did they, and all of a sudden, they're doing much better than I am. Again, 100 trailers a week is what we will produce within the next year and a half to 2 years. I hope to get that to 150 a week, hopefully within 3 to 5 years. And if that happens, obviously that presents a large challenge for us in getting those trailers out of the state of Georgia, especially since every manufacturer in the United States is also trying to get containers out of the state of Georgia at the same time. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask our panelists if they would to take their seats on the table here at the dais, for lack of a better term. Just get up there. And let's see. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. Oh, okay. All right, we're going to use this microphone for Q&A, so if you have a question, we'll run the mic out to you, and I'll find another one to use. Why don't we go ahead and start right over there?
Thank you. Dimitri, you and Jorge being in the Savannah area, I have a question. How in the world are those river pilots going to get those Panamax ships in and out? Are they going to have to retrain the river pilots?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the answer? The question, please, a little more slowly.
The question was about the Savannah port being deepened. The river pilots that work there now are accustomed to working with 42 feet of water. Are you going to have to retrain those river pilots to use the Panamax ships in and out of the river?
I believe that they do go through yearly training. They certainly, they're not going to let them pilot one of these new vessels down that channel without proper training. So I'm sure that the Bar Pilots Association probably will have some substantial training for them as the river gets dredged deeper and the bigger ships come in.
I just add that we're doing Panamax style vessels now. I mean, they're bringing Panamax style vessels in, but they're just not translating the Panama Canal. So they're doing it now. I didn't interrupt.
That was well timed.
Any other questions?
Hi there, my question is for George.
Yes?
Is it George or Jorge? I'm sorry.
No, Jorge. Jorge.
It's hard
Jorge
to get used
is Portuguese-based, Jorge is Spanish-based. That's the difference.
It's hard to get used to
No
the
problem.
name. You mentioned your relationships with the railroads and also that the majority of your freight is from Europe. When you do have freight from Asia, do you have to go through Savannah? Do you use the port of Savannah, or do you find that working on the rail to move it across country is prohibitive because of the out of gauge?
we already had, our majority of freight incoming, so inbound supply chain ocean-wise is through Savannah Port. And the few examples we had of moving inbound freight also, so inbound supply chain from Asia, we used Savannah Port. Actually, it's actually in this presentation by Mr. Curtis Foltz, it's 2/3 comes from Asia, is Savannah Port. Okay, so but we use them, yes.
Let's start back here. Then we'll come back.
Hi, I'm Jamie Roboth, Landstar. As a capacity provider, we've heard all day about the lack of capacity, whether it's the ships or the trucks, especially in the two industries here. Because of the outer gauge freight and because of the lack of capacity that we're all facing, I'd be curious, besides just possibly paying more, are you all considering other ways to incent carriers that can transport your products to work with your individual companies?
Well, I must be frank, in terms of inbound freight road mode inside the US, until now we have not found any problem. Okay, actually, maybe it's maybe it's visible for increased frequency of freight. That means implying a higher number of trucks. But until now, we had no problems in terms of inbound freight by road.
We have similar concerns, but we've aligned ourselves with a partner on both inbound and outbound. We've had a good relationship through many years, and it's worked for us so far, but we have concerns of the future.
I'm going to take prerogative as moderator and ask a question, Dimitri and George both. Talk a little about dealing with the Port of Savannah and maybe your experience with other ports around the world. You know, something for our crowd.
Okay, I can start with that. And actually, I have a comparison base. I'm used in Portugal and basically in Europe, but they are. It's more usual to have ports state or government owned, and like that, they risk sometimes to be a little bureaucratic and. How to say, organizational silos develop, and they are not connected, for instance, with customs. So they are separate entities, not coordinated. And I must say that what we found here in Savannah Port was a state-owned port, or basically I think there's a lot of state participation, but it looks like a private enterprise. That means they are all coordinated, including with Customs and Border Protection, and they think and act, and they have the success they have, on my opinion, personal, because of that. That's maybe one of the reasons we are mainly using the Savannah Port as inbound port. And also I must say that on the few cases that we had what we came to know as hot containers, so urgent things that we need, and they are fortunately not many, the customer service of Savannah Port responded brilliantly. Okay, so we don't have any concerns with this port in this state. Okay, thank you.
My introduction into logistics was with the John S. James Company, and I see Lynn James over there, and they trained me well for my second career at JCB. And working for a customs house broker, I dealt with many ports on the West Coast, on the East Coast, as far as customs-related matter and logistics-related matters. And not just because the Georgia Ports Authority is a sponsor of this event, but truly, in my experience, the Georgia Ports Authority is state-of-the-art as far as their facilities, their technology, and even their customs staff. And we are honored to be moving our freight in and out of the Port of Savannah through the Georgia Ports Authority.
Okay, coming back to you. And then coming back here.
In moving oversized cargo, overdimensional cargo, what qualities do you look for in the channel partners that you use to move it? And if you had a wish list, what could be improved?
We're looking for, certainly safety is a big concern when moving out-of-gauge cargo. Our out-of-gauge cargo is more so towards our bigger excavators. We want to look at referrals. We want to look at financial stability of that partner. We want to look at referrals. We want to look at kind of a blueprint of a previous project that they handled. Kind of would lead us to making a decision on which company to go with.
On our part, we don't have exactly a wish list. I would wish that as we back in Europe have harmonized regulations throughout the countries, for instance, it would be possible for the states, I risk to be inappropriate, but I'm a foreigner, so not a problem, could harmonize the permits and the regulations through all the states. That will be a wish list on that, so that it will be possible for, let's say, ourselves to manage that. But I think it's a very distant or complex issue. And again, I apologize if I'm being inappropriate. But on the rail part, we did partner since the beginning, as I told in the presentation. Our engineering knows what car base is available, deck heights, dimensions, characteristics, so they already protect themselves against the majority of the surprises. And in terms of, we from the beginning partner with the clearance people. Okay, that's absolutely crucial. So if we build big machines, there's no point if we cannot move it to the final point. Okay, but maybe I did not answer completely your question. Okay, but maybe we are not here for time enough to have a wish list yet.
Yes, sir. I have a question for Dimitri or any of you gentlemen. Do y'all have any issues as far as moving your cargo and having enough truckers and manpower to move your freight in Savannah?
As I touched on a little bit earlier, a lot of truckers during the recession got rid of their equipment. They didn't replace it. And to really sum it up in a nutshell, most truck drivers are not raising their kids to be truck drivers anymore. So that's a big concern. And a lot of the regulations have taken a lot of the drivers out of the pool. I think the TWIX regulations with security at the ports have taken a lot of the drivers out of the pools. So we are concerned.
On our part, as I mentioned previously, perhaps in terms of inbound, not high frequency. Comparatively with probably what Dimitri has, or of trucks, we have found no problem in terms of trucks. No.
I have a question for Kevin.
Certainly.
What is the components for your manufacturing? Will that be more of a just-in-time type inventory model, or we keep inventory? And that I'm asking because I'm wondering if you've looked at maybe consolidating the components that are coming from the Midwest, and why you would be doing a lot of milk runs.
Certainly, and I think that's one of the bigger components for us, that it's kind of a change in philosophy for Great Dane. Great Dane has been kind of the old school traditional, bring everything in a month in advance and stack it outside and bring it in as you need it. And that philosophy has changed quite a bit with our plant. And that we kind of hope that in that area we'll be able to change some of those things. And with just in time won't be just in time as some of the automotive guys know it. But for us, you know, if we narrow that down to a few days in a week, obviously when you go less than truckload, there will be opportunities to combine some of those potentially at warehouses in the Midwest, or even we've even had situations in our industry, and as well as a lot of people in here actually know, for a lot of people, their biggest customer is also their biggest competitor in another venue. So what you end up with is a lot of our vendors will actually team up with each other on paper so far to help make some of those things happen. And we haven't seen any of that actually come to fruition yet, but I do think that we will go along that lines down the road. But being the only plant for Great Dane that really has that approach with the less inventory, you know, we're kind of just now dabbling into that area.
Got time for a couple more if anybody's got questions.
Yes, this is for the gentleman at Great Dane. I know that you said that usually with your refrigerated trailers, you don't try to load those when you ship them out. Do you, or is it that it's going to be a facility where you also sell the trailers at that facility, or how do you guys plan on working that out?
Well, 99.9% of our production at our facility will be orders that are actually placed in advance by customers. We will build stocks up front just to give us a base model to train our employees on. But once we get into full production, all of our trailers are generally sold, and in just about every case, the customer wants that trailer the day before we started building it. So, you know, we don't really have a lot, we actually do no sales at our location. We have I think the largest dealer network in the nation for semi-trailers, and that's where all of our sales takes place, and all of our trailers will be built to order.
Any other? Gentlemen, let me ask, is there anything we've forgotten to ask you that you need to tell us? No? All right, last call.
I don't think so.
Thank you all for coming. Please give our panelists a round.
Thank you.